This week we're diving into the insanely smart Neon Genesis Evangelion.
One of the most difficult to explain series in existence. Even if someone's seen the whole series, you may still risk giving them a migraine when explaining the convoluted layers of backstory.
But there's this big war trying to basically destroy humanity because humanity has free will and there's a decision to which level we want to go to. We have free will, so evil's allowed to come and contend, not just good.
We enjoying the show, Lottie?
Lottie, there's an angel, pilot the Ava, pilot the Ava.
Oh my fucking god. Yeah, that's enough. Come on, Monty, off the bed now. Come on. Neon Genesis Evangelion is an anime. It originally aired on October 4th, 1995 and is about a troubled teenage boy named Shinji Ikari being recruited by his father to pilot a mech suit known as an Evangelion. Throughout the show, Shinji and the other pilots tasked to pilot the EVA units battle mysterious kaiju-like creatures known as angels in an attempt to prevent humanity's demise. Before watching the show, people usually say the first 17 episodes are pretty bad, but when you get past them, it gets really good. Many people I know, including myself, have had this said to them. Considering this, the show is 26 episodes long and has a movie. All up, that's 27 things to watch, so when people say that the first 17 episodes are bad, they're saying that more than half of the show you'll be watching is trash. So initially going into it, I had an open mind, and with the amount of praise the show gets, I was somewhat excited to see what all the fuss was about.
Uh-huh, at least I think so. Miss Misato. Oh, is it my turn? So wait, was it your mother's personality that was transplanted? Correct. You're that pervert that oogled my panties! Hold on a minute, don't you slander Shinji like that! You forced him to see your crotch! What's this got to do with you?
Oh my god.
You two seeing each other
This week we're diving into the insanely smart Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Like many, I had to process what the fuck just happened. The show just went from a repetitive slog of watching a whiny-ass teenager fight monsters in a giant mech suit to watching multiple whiny teenagers complaining about their lives and fighting monsters in a giant mech suit with some trippy ass visuals. I know there's a little bit more to the story than that, and don't worry, I'll get into it later. After watching the show, you're supposed to watch the end of Evangelion. That is literally the name of the movie. Very imaginative, I know.
All access to from headquarters has been restricted.
What are your thoughts on that one, Techno?
How far are we now? We're 4 minutes in. I didn't like the movie. Not to say all people must like the same things as me, but I heard a lot of positive things going into this, but my god, what the fuck, man? When I first watch, play or listen to something, I give it an initial rating right after I finish it. After finishing Eva, I'm pretty sure I ranked it about a 6, but after a while and lots of thinking, I couldn't help but think how bad the show I just watched was. The problem with Eva for me, at least doesn't boil down to one thing. It's a combination of multiple things that just make it bad. Now, after thinking about it for an extended period of time, I'd rate the show 3.5 out of 10 and the film a 2. Now guys, if you like the show, power to you. You're free to like whatever you want. You disagree with me? That's cool. But with what I'm about to say, it would be good if instead of just completely disregarding my opinion and dismissing this video in its entirety, if you were to listen to my points and maybe think about them, you might just have a different outlook on how you see Eva. Fuck it, who am I kidding? People who disagree with me have probably already clicked off the video, disliked, and have written up an essay in the comments as to why I'm wrong because I just don't understand the themes.
You don't understand the themes.
Shut up, you are an anime casual.
This is honestly a bad take. Did you even watch the same show as me?
Idiot.
Fool!
When it comes to the story of Eva, surface level, it's pretty easy to understand. Bad monsters attack city, part of the Eva Shinji, otherwise everyone dies. I basically explained the basics of the story in my synopsis segment earlier, but there's just so much to the story that just isn't explained. Not to say all things in stories should outright be told to the viewer. There's a rule in storytelling called show don't tell, but honestly, with Eva, when info is given to the audience, they'll name drop a few things that sound mysterious to sound smart and not mention it again, or if they do, they just won't explain it very well. The story is so pretentious, it's mind-boggling how people can just watch the show and fall in love with it. Thinking about it, people attach themselves to the characters more and just kind of forget about the narrative. Anyway, there's just so much going on and not enough expository dialogue and scenes for it all, and it just goes over your head. I feel like the show can be kind of related to Destiny in a way. The story is, just to put it simply, shit. In Destiny, you wake up kind of halfway through the story, the city and tower have been there for decades, the Vanguard and other Guardians have been defending Earth against the darkness for years, and as a result, the stories suffer. You don't learn all too much and you get very vague descriptions of things but never understand the full picture. However, there's extra lore for the universe and for people that want to learn more about the game world. In regards to Eva, you hear about things from characters but you never get or understand the full picture. Characters have had off-screen relationships for years prior, but you never understand or see the full extent of how close they were. They tell you, but you never quite feel it. Some important details of the story have happened off-screen, not saying all things should be shown to the audience. The element of mystery and intrigue is good in terms of getting viewers to stay hooked, ultimately so you can pay them off later on. The problem with both Destiny and Evangelion is that the stories expect you to know the intricacies so you can fully understand what's being told. For example, in Eva, the characters refer to Lilith and Adam, and you occasionally see them, but you have no clue as to what they are or the importance they have. Adam and Lilith are what's known as seeds of life sent across the galaxy by the first ancestral race. I'm not all too sure, so correct me if I'm wrong, but the angels were made by the seeds of life, and if they ever make contact with Lilith or Adam, that will cause an impact, which is basically an extinction level event. Now, I'm going to stop there. Are you with me? If you're confused already with what I'm saying, I don't blame you. There is so much shit in the show that is just convoluted to all hell. What I just told you guys then, never explained properly in the show. You just hear characters talking about them and you see them, but the only thing you get told is, Angel not allowed to touch Lilith, if they do, we die. Not to mention that the show doesn't really have any real stakes. The Angel's potentially destroying the Earth. That should be scary, yes? Well, watching episode after episode of the same circular narrative structure, the Angels are just kind of there. They're expected to show up and you know that the characters will defeat them. No one dies except for Shinji's friend Toji, which was actually quite surprising when it happened. Wait, never mind. After watching Shinji's Eva crushing the entry plug in which Toji was, he's fine just an episode later, in hospital. What a joke.
Wait, Future Aston here. Just realized while editing the video that Kaji dies. Yeah, kind of forgot about that one. Also, forgot to mention that I'm talking about the show, not the movie. Alright, back to the video.
The only episode that doesn't follow the circular narrative structure is episode 7, in which Misato and Shinji go to a demonstration ceremony of an American EVA unit that is powered by a nuclear reactor. During the episode, the nuclear core goes into meltdown and Misato has to disarm it or whatever. I can't really remember exactly how the episode went, which is kind of saying something. I never said it was good, I just said it didn't follow the same structure as the other episodes. While we're on topic of not being able to remember things, I don't understand how this show expects its audience to keep up with it. Here's a list of things that the audience needs to understand to get what the fuck is going on. Now, I guess there is a lot of EVA lore you can read up on after the show, but you need to have a good story first before you start to add lore on top of it. Imagine it's like a pizza. You have a good foundation, that being the pizza base, then you add the sauce and the cheese to make it tasty, and then you add all the toppings on afterwards. In this case, the lore is the toppings. Lore should always be the additives to the story. In the case of games such as Dark Souls, it's okay to have a lore-heavy story as that's how the game is designed. However, if you have a lore-heavy show, how in God's name is the audience supposed to know what the fuck is going on in the first place? I hope I'm making myself clear, as I can't stress this enough. Let me say it one more time to drill it in. Lore should be optional, not a necessity. When you finish watching EVA, you have to watch a video on what you just watched and have everything spoon-fed to you because there's just so much shit you need to know. When people talk about EVA's story being good, I'm almost 100% positive they're talking about the lore. Another thing that I want to mention is during production of the show, the manga, aka the source material that the show goes off, wasn't completed. The movie, The End of Evangelion, came out in 97, while the final episode of the show aired in 96. People that watched the final episode of the show when it aired believed that this was the end of Shinji's arc, and that is somewhat a satisfying arc for this character to undergo. However, during the film, Shinji and other characters such as Misato get absolutely fucking butchered, as they do and say things that some people could interpret as important character moments. But I see it as character ruining and played off purely for shock value. This in turn most likely destroyed the view of the characters for the audience that previously thought the arcs were finished. I can say that this is what happened for me, and I can't imagine how confusing audiences must have been in theaters. The film and the final 2 episodes happen concurrently with each other, as the final 2 episodes basically play out inside Shinji's head. I struggled to find any evidence to show that this was the case, but as stated before, I guess the show wants you to know this before watching. After watching, I had no idea that the film took place during the show, but what do I know, I'm a fucking casual. The story is so ridiculously overcomplicated and unnecessary for creating a cohesive plot, and it hurts the viewing experience. So for this section of the video, I'll list off the different characters, giving them a kind of character bio, then afterwards I'll share my thoughts and what I like and dislike about them. Shinji is a teen troubled by the past relationship with his father and suffers depression. He constantly does what his father wants him to do, but never gets the recognition or the love he needs from him. He is the protagonist of the show, and the decisions he makes directly affect the narrative and the people around him. I don't have much to say for Rei. Rei is a quiet, introverted type character and doesn't talk all too much. She's another pilot of the EVA units and seems to have a somewhat close relationship to Shinji's father, a much closer relationship than Shinji does. She's brutally honest, and this gets her in trouble on multiple occasions. It is later discovered that Rei is a clone and is made up of Shinji's mother and the seed of life, Lilith. Asuka first appears in episode 8 and is the 3rd child to pilot the EVA units. She's always loud, putting others down around her, and is always trying to prove that she is the best at everything. She suffered from domestic abuse as a child and witnessed her mother's suicide at a young age, and acts the way she does to cover up her emotions. Masato Katsuragi is the guardian of Shinji and Asuka, and is a person of high importance at NERV, the company Shinji's dad owns. I forgot to mention that NERV is the company that owns the EVA units that the teens pilot. Her father led an expedition that was the cause of the second impact, resulting in his death and her being orphaned. I don't know, I don't have much else to add. I'm sure I've left stuff out, but whatever, I don't think she's as important as the other 3 characters. I'll just leave it there. There's plenty of other characters like Kawaru, Kaji, Gendo Akari, and more, but if I'm being honest, as said before, I think the ones that I mentioned are more important than all the other characters in the show. There could be an argument that Kawaru is super important, and I can understand that, but call me a lazy cynic because I cannot be fucked to write about any more characters. Okay, so Shinji is one of the most annoying protagonists I've ever seen in any form of media. He is so submissive and never stands up for himself, and more often than not, I would find myself getting physically angry at how he just sat there and took abuse. I understand that he is a representation of how people with mental illness may react in these situations, but that doesn't make him interesting to watch when you know exactly how he'll react when a negative situation arises. When you start a show, a character like this might be annoying to watch, but over the course of the series, they grow and they learn to stand up for themselves. Shinji doesn't do this. However, he does undergo a character arc. I would argue the only meaningful arc in the entire show. By the end of the show, he accepts himself for who he is, flaws and all, and that's quite a good message to leave us on. A little too late, but good nonetheless. But as said before, the movie completely ruins him by showing us the most incompetent version of Shinji we have seen yet. I understand that he is going through some stuff, but with the events unfolding around him, no one would act the way he does. As much as I dislike Shinji as a main character, I do think there is some potential there for him, and I just don't think they nailed it. Idea is there, execution isn't. Think of it like this, imagine if, over the course of the show, Shinji is berated by Asuka and dismissed by his father like normal, but instead of not changing and just submitting to it like he does normally, he learns with the help of Kaworu and Masato that he is the #1 person that he needs to look out for in life, accepting his flaws earlier on. This would flip Shinji's personality, and as not much happens character-wise in the earlier episodes, it would give us more time to see Shinji become more of a person and stand up for himself and make actual meaningful connections, ultimately proving that people with mental illness can be capable of making a difference and positively impacting others around them, while at the same time accepting and embracing their flaws as a human and using that as their strength. I know that sounds a little corny, but it's true. And even though it's my opinion, I'm sure that this version of Shinji could help people that already identify with him become better people in their own lives. I'm not gonna lie, Rei is probably my favourite character in the show. The reason she's my favourite is probably because she's the least annoying. This shouldn't be the basis for liking a character, but in Eva it makes it very apparent. But I think the real reason is that she has the most going on character-wise. What I mean by that is, at first you think she's a relatively shy person, but after watching you find out that she's actually a clone, and whenever she gets killed, they just get another one. She plays an important role in the end of Evangelion, as she is the one to cause the third impact. But it just confuses me thinking about the whole Rei ending the world thing, so yeah. I like her for the Rei we see in the show, not so much for what we see in the film. I don't have much to say for Rei, I can't really fault her too much. I genuinely think she is one of the best things about Eva. +1 positive point. Asuka is my least favourite thing about the whole series. I genuinely hate her. I have no doubt in my mind that this is one of my most hated characters in any series, period. She's actually insufferable. I am trying not to be over the top when I say this, but it's true. Call me cold-hearted, but whenever anything bad happened in the show, I never felt bad, including later on in the show when the deeper themes are explored. It is hard to feel bad for someone you hate, and even when you see what she's been through, she has an extremely low amount of redeeming qualities. I should actually change that to because I know there's a large fan base attached to Asuka. But as I was saying, I found it really hard to sympathize for her, and I guess she is supposed to depict how people with her specific mental illness could act out. But as she has no redeeming qualities, I feel like this is a poor portrayal of someone with crippling mental disability. Realistic? Somewhat. A good character so you sympathize with her? Fuck no. How I see her is, as stated earlier, she pushes people away and perceives herself above everyone else in an attempt to cover up and mask her true emotions, but she eventually realizes that by doing this has made her become more like her abusive parents, and as a result ends up on the same path as her mother, that being to suicide. However, as she fails, she realizes she has something to live for, that being the Eva program, and forgetting what others think of her, becoming a better person and a hero in the process. This, in theory, is a super fucking good premise for a character, and I can see why many people regard her to be the best character in the show. Except in execution, I feel like they missed the mark and didn't reach the full potential of what she could have been. How they could have changed Asuka, similar to my Shinji idea, is to implement the deeper themes earlier on in the show. A, get audiences more intrigued with the characters, and B, they can have more time to redeem her and give her a more satisfying arc. Her arc in the film is that she comes back and fights Seilei's EVA units and dies in the process. I just remembered that I forgot to mention Seilei in the story section, but that just goes to show how much shit you have to remember when it comes to the show. Anyway, what I'm saying is that her arc is too little too late, and if you move her suicide attempt maybe 4 or 5 episodes earlier, you can have more time for her to realize what she's become, heal as a person, and perhaps even reconcile with Shinji and the other characters she lashed out against. Oh, God forgive me for what I'm about to do, but I'm going to compare Asuka to Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones. Jaime Lannister starts out as one of the most hated characters in the entire show, yet through incredible writing, I don't want to talk about the last season of Game of Thrones though, I've tried to forget that.
To be honest, I never really cared much for them. Innocent or otherwise.
And the best character arc I've ever seen becomes one of the best and my personal favourite character in the entire show. Jaime at the start of Game of Thrones is never listened to by any of the honourable or righteous characters, and as a result doesn't have a chance to explain why he does what he does. Halfway through the series, during again one of my favourite parts, he confesses and explains himself, clearing the air. This results in the audience actually sympathising and feeling bad for a character they had previously seen push a kid out a window, stab a man through the eye, and beat his own cousin to death. Comparing this to Asuka, from the very moment she's introduced, she's loud and isn't very likeable. Throughout, she constantly harasses others and could be seen as an antagonist towards Shinji. Toward the end of the show, we learn of her troubled past, yet we don't see any attempt at her becoming a better person. This doesn't change until the film and after her attempted suicide, in which she returns as a hero. The obvious differences between these two characters is of course the writing and performances given by both the actors, but I think, as suggested before, if you move Asuka's flashback scene and a suicide attempt earlier in the show and give her more screen time with other characters, after all that you could see a more positive and a much more likable version of Asuka, maybe even becoming the best part of the show. This could also give people that can relate to Asuka some hope as they see how toxic she once was, and seeing her getting along with others and becoming a better person could influence them to do the same. Again, I don't have much to say about Masato as I did for Shinji and Asuka, but I do want to mention how she's kinda ruined by the movie offering Shinji sex. Like, what? I don't know if I missed anything during the show, but I feel like this kinda came out of nowhere. Shinji is 14 and she is 29. You can't make this shit up, man. I think this is another case of saying or doing something edgy for the sake of shock value, but I don't know, I'm sure someone is already typing out a message to say how wrong I am about this whole thing. Besides the version of Masato we see in the movie, I don't really mind her in the show that much. When it comes to pieces of media that is greatly loved and valued by a large majority, when you don't share the same love for it, it can feel kinda shit. I really wanted to like Eva, but I just can't say the whole show is bad. The visuals are awesome. I love the art style and the colours that are used. Also, the music that accompanies it is really good as well. It's just a shame that most of the important part of the show, that being the characters and the story, either don't reach its full potential or is just super convoluted and really hard to follow. It's almost a meme at this point as to how much I hate Eva, but honestly, I don't. I don't know what it is, but I just can't find myself to fully hate this show. It's weird, I always find myself thinking about it and sharing my opinion with others. Like, look at me, I'm making this video, not for others, not for revenue. I'm making it for myself. I guess that's the real point of Eva, to start a conversation with others and to share opinions, to go out and make genuine human connections, talk to one another, whatever that may be about. And if you think about it, that's pretty smart. I guess I do somewhat understand some of the themes presented. I guess if I was to summarize Neon Genesis Evangelion in a sentence, I'd say that Eva tries to tell a character-driven story alongside a lore-rich narrative, expecting the audience to understand everything but failing to do so. I know people would disagree with what I say, it's guaranteed. I don't know, maybe that's just because they watched a breakdown video on what Eva is about and they formulated their own opinion based off what another person has said. But they're free to do that. I don't care. What I'm really trying to say is that Eva's ideas are solid. The lore, as confusing as it may be, is there. The characters have so much potential. That's just what this whole thing is to me. Potential. I haven't read the manga, and I don't really intend to, for a while anyway. And I'm not sure if any of the ideas I brought up are addressed and or fixed there, but the show could have been so much better, and it saddens me to know that the majority of the people that watch and love the show can't see that. You shouldn't have to extend yourself to other media to enjoy something on its own. In this sense, it kind of feels like a Call of Duty Zombies Easter egg that you need to pull up a website to do. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but if you remember or even know about it, but for the Origins Easter egg, for a multitude of different steps, you have to pull up a website to understand things. A notable one for me is when upgrading the fire staff, there was writing on a wall in a church that was like binary or whatever, and you needed to look at a picture on a website to understand which things you needed to shoot. In the case of Eva, right after watching the show, you shouldn't have to watch a video explaining the themes, the plot, the character motivations, and everything in between. It's such a shame because you can tell that the writers really wanted to do something with their show, but to clear budgetary issues, it didn't come out the way it was intended. I guess that's why there's so many rebuilds of the show. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. This took a long time to make, and just you guys watching it means so much to me. There's been so many different versions of this video, and I'm so happy with where it is now. So yeah, I guess this is the part of the video where I like put up my socials and stuff, so socials are up on the screen if you guys care about that kind of stuff. I'll keep this bit short because I'm not that good at improv. So yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Company Masato Katsuragi is a guardian. Peter Piper pecked a pick a Peter Piper pecked a pick a Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Asuka first appears in episode 8 and is the third pilot to first child to pilot the EVA units. I'm about to monotone voice this. I forgot to mention that Nerve is the company that owns the EVA units. Units? Units. Why do I keep saying units? Pilot. The EVA units that the teams pilot. I forgot to mention that Nerve is the company that owns the EVA units that the team pilot. Fucking. Oh my god, there's like no punctuation in this fucking sentence. Holy. This would flip Shinji's personality as not much happens character-wise in the earlier episodes. Full stop. I just found that it's really hard to sympathize for her, and I guess she's... I don't understand why I'm reading it like a fucking retard. Honk, honk. Why is this so fucking difficult to read? Can I just read it normally? This could also give people that can relate to Asuka some hope as they see